Now more of the Mid-Coast Morning Buzz with Richard and Jim. Radio 9, WCME.
Well, Jim, we are so pleased to welcome Michael Arthur in our studio. Michael is a mental health therapist and a counselor right here at 14 Main Street at Fort Andrews in Brunswick, and one of the first friends of Radio 9 WCME. We see his smiling face every day as he's coming to work. He always smiles, gives us a wave, and very often comes in here just to chat with us, just to say hello. And I think it stems from his initial reaction of seeing these two guys sitting here in a fishbowl talking to themselves at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Could be.
Michael, thank you so much for coming in. And again, you're just a sweetheart. You're a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
What we're going to talk about today is the correlation between mental health and gun violence. Before we get into the minutia of the political aspect of it, and Jim has a lot of pertinent questions, you as a professional, how does your industry quantify mental illness?
Mental illness is there's a diagnostical statistical manual known as the DSM, and if you're billing insurance companies, if you're seeing clients, you need to be able to provide a diagnosis. And so those diagnoses carry various codes. And so it is under that statistical manual that we're able to say if a person is clinically depressed, has anxiety, or has some sort of personality disorder or something of the sort.
There are some defined symptoms, are there not, in the DSM that you refer to?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, if a person is clinically depressed, for instance, one of the things that you will see maybe is, you know, slower cognitive processing skills, abilities, lethargic, fatigue, lower energy levels, difficulty getting to sleep.
Tendency to bang one's head against the wall at about 50 miles an hour. Would that be a symptom?
Well,
that sounds like you and me, Jim.
That could definitely be a symptom of something more serious.
I really don't mean to be too light, but sometimes it seems we need a little bit of lightness of being and discussing these things.
Sure.
Well, let's talk about guns as they relate to this or mental illness. I mean, as it relates to this gun debate that we're having. It seems to me, Michael, and you indicated to me the other day, and you can talk about this a little more if you so choose, that you're not an out-and-out gun foe. But it certainly seems to me the forces in this society, the leading one probably being the National Rifle Association, that would like no change in the gun laws, no change in regulation, love to get the topic going on anything other than the gun issue is a specific entity. They love to talk about mental illness. They love to talk about video games. And it just seems to me that at the bottom line, if you're going to deal with guns on a serious basis in this country, deal with guns, because for one thing, there is much gun crime and much gun violence that, from all I know, does not relate to mental illness in the way that we traditionally perceive mental illness. Talk about it.
Well, first thing is, I really appreciate your including me in this conversation, because I've been giving it some thought, talking to other people about this. There are many people with various kinds of mental health issues who do not commit any serious crimes, who are responsible gun owners. And one of the things I'm certainly not interested in doing is somehow stigmatizing mental health, in the sense that we're given the idea that mental health issues necessarily are directly related to criminal issues. And so, I think that's an important criteria. I think that this is a very serious health issue, that there are very serious shootings and killings happening all across the country. And I think it must force us all, including the NRA, to look at whether or not we have a progressive understanding of mental health policy and issues. Are the laws suitable for the time? And any time you have a mass shooting and killings on a daily basis like you have in Chicago, I think that it really...
Newtown, you mean? Or Chicago also?
Yes.
Okay.
We really, as a society, as citizens, have a responsibility to review whatever position we have on these issues, and mental health is an important part of that. I also want to say
I just want to clarify one thing that you've said already, make sure we're all on the same page
Sure.
here. You're saying, I take it, that there can certainly be a link between mental illness and criminality, but there may not be also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, and like various other health issues, mental health is a health issue. It's an issue of the mind and the brain and so on, but we don't say that people who have cardiac issues should be monitored with respect to gun violence. I really don't see that relationship. I think that, yes, there have been very serious cases where the intersection of mental health issues and gun violence have clashed, and we've seen that unfold in very serious ways. But it really ought to give us as a society an avenue, a way to get to understanding how do we then look at the intersection of mental health and these gun violence issues in the country. And that, to me, is an important review. I really think that that Maine could be a model for that. We can bring mental health professionals and responsible gun owners and industry people together to talk about this issue.
Give me one or two specifics as to how we might do this better. How might we do a better job of isolating those who are mentally ill or mentally diseased in some way who might actually pose a threat to their fellow men and women?
Well, you know, one of the things that, and this, I really think that mental health professionals can really play a very serious role in this, in terms of, again, helping responsible gun owners and dealers try to really understand what it is they might consider before they go about giving a gun to another person. So some criteria, you know, you may want to think about: is this person tangential? Are they displaying psychotic features? Are they like clinically or chronically depressed? Are they able to hold a conversation with you? Are they able to establish good eye contact? Does this all feel or seem normal conversation to you that is happening? If your suspicions are raised, then you might do what a bartender does. You know, I kind of.
That's very interesting. You're really saying maybe we should have basic instruction to people who sell guns as to what to look for
Sure.
among the warning signs of mental illness among the people who might buy from them. And we don't really have any of that right now, do we? That I'm aware of.
I don't think so. And if we do, perhaps, you know, one of the serious things that, as part of developing a new policy and approach in terms of responsible gun dealership and ownership and general selling of firearms, is just to maybe review some of the policies that we allow people to obtain the weapons under the law.
But, Michael, doesn't this fall into the same category as the suggestion from the NRA that now teachers be qualified in handgun abilities? If you're turning this over to the retailer, that they now have to have the same credentials as you do as a medical professional, is that realistic?
I think that is a concern that you will hear across the board. And I think that we have to facilitate a conversation where people are able to issue those sorts of concerns. I'm not saying I expect a gun dealer or retailer to be a mental health professional. And I'm not saying that I expect a bartender to be a mental health professional. But I think that each of these areas carry responsibilities. And I think that we need to really facilitate a conversation about whether or not we would allow, since we're talking about mental health issues, a person who might come across as having a serious mental health issue or create doubt in a responsible dealer's mind, gun dealer's mind, about whether or not that person should have a weapon. I mean, we don't let people leave bars if they're really drunk, they are incapacitated. There are really serious implications for that, yet we don't take away people's rights to drink. I really am very interested in the dialogue, a conversation, and being able to soberly raise these kinds of concerns with people who are very serious believers in gun ownership.
One other thing I want to cover here. Seems to me there is a tendency on the part of a lot of people to simplify this mental health issue when it pertains to guns.
Yeah.
They seem to be proposing, well, we need to spend more money, throw some more money at the problem, and just pay a little more attention, and everything will get much better. In point of fact, isn't it true that it is extremely hard, even for some smart, seasoned mental health professionals, to predict with any degree of accuracy who's going to be violent on any given day?
Yes, that's very true. It's very hard for a mental health professional to, it's human behavior. Each human being is unique. There are criteria that we definitely look for to determine whether or not a person is a person that's threatened themselves or some person else. An experienced professional knows that. But certainly I would not expect a gun dealer to understand that. And I do think that this is a huge opportunity created in the country for us to really have a conversation about what responsible ownership means without looking to demonize one side or the next, necessarily throw money at a particular issue. We really need to have a conversation about what I think is a very serious health issue regarding people being shot so consistently across the country with guns.
Into throwing the money at a particular issue, regardless of their motives, are you pleased with Governor LePage and the NRA coming out and saying that we should spend more money in the mental health industry?
Yes, more money needs to be spent. I mean, to be spent. And mental health, over the years have suffered serious cuts in various aspects of the industry, and yet, we're in the middle of a huge healthcare reform, and I do think that many aspects in which mental health needs to be readdressed. We have a lot of post-traumatic stress issues coming, as many of our troops who served us so well overseas are coming back home with various health issues. We need to really have the resources available to deal with that. We need to have the resources to deal with what is going on in the country in terms of right now and all the with mass killings of kids and all the shootings in Chicago and other areas of the country.
One last question, just to put this in some perspective. It's my understanding that we really know relatively little about the function of the human brain in comparison to, say, all other kinds of bodily organs like the heart and like various issues related to cancer, because obviously, their heart disease and cancer disease carry with them huge fatality. So we tended to focus on those and not spend so much time on mental illness. That's kind of true, isn't it?
Yes, it's, I think that neuroscience is really changing a lot of how we see mental health issues, and is developing and leading the field, and is really reaffirming what mental health professionals have known in a more scientific way for a long time, that mental illness does exist. There's a lot that obviously is not known about mental illness, and the brain is a fascinating part of the human body that is still largely uncharted.
There's just one other thing. Now that we've brought you on this program and exposed you to a much wider audience,
I do appreciate that.
Can we have like a free consultation with you the next time we're just going nuts and bouncing off the walls?
I think we just have.
Silly me. I didn't recognize it was going on.
Our guest has been Michael Arthur. He is a mental health counselor, practitioner here with an office at 14 Main Street at Fort Andros. Jump on Michael's website at www.michaelarthur.org. Michael, thank you so much for coming in. You've provided some great insight, and your smile every day is just very refreshing. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
I appreciate that.
Radio 9 WCME.